Hi, my name is Teetelli. I was born in New York City. I grew up in Greenwich Village during the 1960s and 70s. Everything was changing: culture, pop, art, society, everything, just an explosion. It was during this period that I first got introduced to photography. My father had given me a small Polaroid Instamatic camera, the kind that used to, take the picture and pull it out and put it in the metal flap and stick it under your armpit and wait for your body heat to heat it up. And then all of a sudden, magically, an image appeared, before you, which was just fascinating. It was just the first steps on what would turn out to be a lifelong ambition and love for photography. I have a very wide palette when it comes to photography, and that really stems principally from being an avid traveler. I've had the fortune to be able to travel to many different places all throughout the world. I remember when I was a kid going to public school, to elementary school in the village, and the day after school closed, my mother and father were driving me to JFK Airport and putting me on a plane, and I would fly to Greece and be met on the other side by my uncles or my aunts, and I would stay in Greece and go to different Greek islands with them and visit all kinds of different places. And then the day before school, I'd be put on a plane and heading back to New York so I could start school the next day. So beginning, with travel and traveling so much when I was younger, I continued that as I got older, and I really enjoy seeing all the different spots, curiosities, wonders, fascinations that the world can offer. With that, it really opens up a very wide palette where I enjoy photographing flora and fauna, landscapes, which landscapes happen to be, I think, my personal favorite, people, street photography, really pretty much anything that catches my eye and then just flips those little switches off in my head and say, you know what, I like this, I want to take a picture of it, it's something, but I'm not really sure what it is when I'm photographing, quite often, and I figure it out later on. It's just, going along with the gut, the feel, that moment, that all those switches kind of go off and you snap the photographs. Growing up, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so forth, the Cold War era and everything that had transpired with Cuba and the Cuban Missile Crisis and, basically shutting down Cuba, for 50 years, embargoes and, and all this kind of nonsense. I never thought I would ever set foot or see Cuba in my lifetime. And over the recent years, things have changed. Cuba has become much more accessible, and actually it's becoming incredibly more accessible as time is moving on now. But I was able to join a trip of a small group, and we went to Havana, about 10 of us, and I was just amazed. I was just totally blown away. First of all, the Cuban people are just so warm, and they're just very, very welcoming, the Cuban people. Of course, the big item that everybody's familiar with is all the old American cars, the classic American cars from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, there's thousands of them everywhere, operating in every street. You cannot go through Havana without seeing one every other block. Usually you see them in clusters, from block to block, which was fascinating. At one point, we had gone into the Plaza Hotel and gone up to the roof so we could see Havana, because the plaza was centrally located in the city of Havana. And just looking out over the roof, I took some beautiful scapes of the city, just magnificent. And at one point, I just, from the corner of my eye, this bright orange color just caught my eye and drew me in. And I looked down from 9 stories up, and I see this orange convertible just kind of going down the street about a block and a half away. and I turned my camera real quick and I shot it, and was able to crop it. It's about a postage stamp size crop, but it's magnificent. It's been in a few galleries on exhibition. People love it. I call it Crucero. More recently, actually just several weeks ago from the time of this filming, I went on a father-daughter trip, and we went to visit Iceland. My daughter had been wanting to go to Iceland for years and years, and I was quite interested and fascinated by it, as well. And we finally decided to book the trip, and we went. And Iceland was just a fantastic destination. At one point, I actually thought I was going to die on this trip because we decided that we were going to go to a glacier and go into an ice cave. And I was not really, clear on what we needed to do to get into the ice cave, but I found out, and I was really like, I'm not going to make it. But we hiked for about 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour. They hooked up all kinds of gear on me, safety lines, straps, harnesses, this. And I'm like, where are we going? And we actually had to rappel down the side of the glacier, like on probably like a 45-degree angle. And I have to tell you, what I saw was it just blew me away. It was just absolutely amazing. The ice cave and the texture, and it looked like honeycombs. It was just fascinating, and it was so blue. It was like looking, at gems. It was just mind-blowing. So we got some wonderful photographs there. There was one photograph that I took where, from one side it looked like nothing. On the other side, you had the formation, I guess, of the black sand, rocks and other things that kind of came together and looked like what used to be on the front of the old Viking ships. And I was like, this is the shot. And I took the shot. And of course, when I developed it later, I just fell in love with it. And I called it, the Longboat's Return. My other, favorite photograph from the ice caves was my daughter. She had explored a little deeper than I had gone into, and she was coming back. And I saw her, and I called out to her, and I snapped the photograph. And it just looks amazing. Everybody that I show this photograph to, their jaw hangs open. They look at it and they go, "Wow!" It just blows them away. But Iceland was just phenomenal. The people, the culture, the food, everything was just perfect. And I came back with over 2,000 photographs. And I have a lot more to work on. Very particular about my photographs and the fine art print final product. I went through a long, painstaking, and actually expensive process of utilizing different papers, different inks, different processes. You get the right combination that works for my photography and my photographs. And after months and months of experimenting with all these different processes, I finally settled down utilizing Hahnemühle mold paper. Hahnemühle's a German company. They've been making paper for over 500 years, very highly regarded. Their papers are immaculate, and the type of paper that I use, which is the William Turner, it's a very thick stock, has a little bit of a texture on it, and it just blends really incredibly well with the pigment inks. The image just pop, whether it's color, whether it's black and white. I have all of my prints made in Germany. They get shipped to me at my studio. When they come to the studio, I go through them meticulously with a magnifying glass and look for any imperfections, anything that is there that perhaps I missed during photo processing. Typically what I do is I get proofs. They're smaller size prints, maybe 4x4s, 8x6s, and I'll go through those for the quality, the sharpness of the photographs, the color rendition, and things along those lines, then tweak it based on that printout. There's always a variation and a difference, seeing color and detail on a computer screen versus the actual printout. Once we get past the proof process and we get a final print, and it meets all of my subjective criteria and works for me, at that point it'll get my signature. I personally sign every single one of my pieces. I'll number them myself by hand. I sign the overleaf of the photograph, On the overleaf, it'll also get a Hahnemühle serial number hologram sticker with a matching serial number, one that will go on the certificate of authenticity. There's a seal, red and gold seal, that certifies the photograph as an authentic photograph for my collection. I want whoever's buying my prints to, feel that they've gotten something special, because it is special. There's been a lot of care, a lot of effort that has gone into capturing each image, whether it's traveling halfway across the world and processing and back and forth with proofs and refining it to a point where you have a finished product. And a lot of them never make it, they just get scrapped along the way. But once you get that product, it's got to be special and it has to have all the details. I principally use Leica cameras and lenses. I find that Leica makes incredible lenses. I dare anyone find something better, for the type of photography that I do. The work product that I get as a result of the lenses, which are all handmade and hand polished and all put together by hand. It's just amazing that these days you can get anything made by hand. Is just magnificent. The resolution, the sharpness of the photographs. It really makes my photographs jump. Locally, one of my favorite locations to shoot is Liberty State Park. It's also a very somber and very special opportunity to visit the 9/11 Memorial at Liberty State Park. I've done a series of photographs to commemorate what had happened at 9/11. 9/11 was very personal for most of the people that live here in the area. It was a difficult time, and it's certainly not a forgotten time. With that, I wanted to capture some photographs, and I positioned myself in between the parallel walls, and it leads to the center where the Freedom Tower now stands, and shows how this country is resilient. We've come back, and just has a lot of different highlights and messages that this photograph delivers. I usually release this photograph once a year on the anniversary of 9/11, set up where any and all proceeds from the sales of these photographs will go to a 9/11 related charity. But as a New Yorker and being born in New York City, there's just a little soft spot, obviously, there for me, and coupled, obviously, with what had happened with 9/11, it all kind of comes together and symbolically delivers a message and makes me remember anyway. Received a lot of attention in the recent past with my photography. For a lot of years I just kind of dismissed it, and people said, "Well, your photography is really great. You should put it out there. People should see it." And I said, "Well, nah, nobody wants to see my photography. It's not, it's not that important. It's not that great. It's who wants to see it?" And then finally, I'd heard that over and over so many times that, one year I said, "You know what, I'm going to make some prints and I'm going to give them out to some of my customers in my other business, for holiday gifts." And the accolades I got back and the recognition I got and the thanks and everything else you can imagine, it was like, wow, these people actually really like my photographs. And I said, well, let me try putting it out there. So I decided to start submitting photographs into juried competitions, international competitions. Next thing I knew, I was getting into dozens and dozens of galleries, winning awards, cash prizes, receiving accolades, won awards in competitions internationally like Moscow, Tokyo, United Kingdom. Had artwork on exhibition in museums all across the U.S. in most of the major art fairs like Art Expo, New York, Art San Diego, Art Basel, the Spectrum in Miami. Coming up very shortly, I'm going to be in Austria, in Vienna, at a private gallery where I'll have a solo exhibition going on for about 30 days. And of course, you can visit my Facebook page, and you'll see some of the newer releases as they come out. I like to share them very often and see how people react to them, and And very often ones that I like, people don't like, and ones I don't like, people like, and that's what becomes the art. So I kind of really, temper that. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you have some time, stop in the gallery, take a look at some of my art pieces, and maybe one will speak to you and you'll want to take it home. Thanks again.